Hello everyone. In this video I am going to show how to take a simple square and convert this into a kit bash object. Part of this video demonstrates the correct way to cut objects so that the mesh is very clean without issues. I am showing how to do this the vanilla way without purchased add-ons. So there are two things that are needed basically, which is the Bool tool and the Fast Carve. Both of these are free, and I'm going to show you how to do this at this point. So you're first going to go to your preferences, and you're going to actually go look for the Bool tool underneath the magnifying glass, and you got to make sure that's selected on. Okay, so once that's done, you want to go to your save preferences, so that way it'll stay in there for good. Okay, so once selected, let's close this out completely. So that's the Bool tool. Now the next thing is to actually get the Fast Carve, which is online. So here we go to Google, and we're going to do a search for Fast Carve. Add-on for Blender 2.8. Okay, select it. So select the Fast Carve Blender add-on, the top one. So once you get to this web page, you're going to actually go to the area, bring it down to the bottom, and you're going to go click on GitHub to go to that link. Okay, once there, you're going to actually click on the code and select download zip. Once that's done, you're going to go in there, and once it's completely downloaded, you go to the little section there and say show in folder. And then you're going to copy and paste this into a folder that's easy to get to. That's what I normally do. I'm going to put it under where I put all my add-ons. So I actually put this in the folder called Hot Up Stuff. I put all my add-ons there to make it simple to find. Already have a copy of it here, of course. So once it's in there, you pretty much have to just go back into Blender and now install it. Okay, again, you go to Preferences, select Install on this situation. So you can click Install, and then you're going to go to the same folder that you put the add-on in, which was Hard Ops for me. Once you find it, you select it, and you say Install Add-ons. Once it's done installing, the little blue script down below will disappear. And then you're just going to look that up and click on it and make sure that it's selected to be on. Once that's done, then you save preferences again. That's pretty much the way to do this. So now I'm going to go in and basically delete the light and the camera off this scene so I can just focus on the actual object itself. So now I'm going to go to Edit Mode and go to Lines and select each of those sections of the line. In this way I could actually go in and install, or actually hit the bevel tool to add to it. So once I go to bevel, I'm going to pull this in. I'm going to select the bevel itself and go in there and change it to 0.75. I'm just trying to get a good amount of edge on that. So once that's done, I'm going to add in some line segments, which is about 10 on each side. So that way it'll be nice and smoothly rounded throughout this process. Okay, so there's 10. Once it looks good, like the curve, depends on how close you're going to get to something, but that's what I go with, 10. So now I'm going to actually go through the see-through mode, hit those two things on the top there, and this way I could actually select the polys easier. I'm going to go to the side view first, and now I'm actually going to select that 1/2. And once I do that, I'm going to actually hit use the Move tool underneath Edit Mode, and I'm going to use the G key as well as the X to move outward. Again, you can move this wherever you want. It just depends how long you want this to be. But for this tutorial, I'm moving it out where I want it to. So anyway, so I'm doing both sides the same thing to create the look that I want. Okay. So now I'm going to bring down the top a little bit, You can use the arrows if you want. A simple way to do it sometimes, depending where you're at, the position you're in. Same with the bottom section. Remove that as well. So now I'm going to add a cube to this basically for a cutting object. So I'm creating the cube. I'm going to kind of place it where I'd like to have it. So now I got it where I want it. I'm going to scale this up on the x-axis. So I'm going to pull that through. And then I'm actually going to look at a different perspective of this, and I'm going to pull it through on the y. This way it will actually cut the whole thing all the way through. And now I'm going to actually take this and rotate it. That's a pretty good angle there. And I'm going to actually go in and just put -25 so I can get the right angle that I want. And then I'm actually going to move this up a little bit. So I'm going to hit the G key and move it a little bit back and line it up with the edge where I want it. Okay. So go back to object mode, and for some reason that was actually added to the other object. So I'm going to go to edit mode and select the polygons here. Hit the control key plus key, and now I'm actually going to go in and go to mesh, separate out selection. So now that's a separate object. I will need to add all transforms. So hit apply, all transforms. That way it centers itself off the 0 axis again, so it's easier to do a mirror type effect. So now I'm going to select the modifier and go to mirror. Once selected, it'll actually do it exactly the opposite side, and hit apply. So now you got two objects, and now we're going to use the Bool tool to cut this main object with these two side objects. So now I'm going to select the main object and actually use the right mouse and hit shade smooth, and also select normals and put that on auto smooth. This way the object really nice. And then I'm going to actually go to madcap and change it to an easier look on the object so you can see how it's going to look once you cut it. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to select the cutting object itself and then hit the main object, and then go to the Bool tool, which is under edit, Bool tool, and then once you select that, you're going to hit difference. So once that's done, you cut your object. Okay, that's looking good. There's a nice cut to it. No issues with the model itself. So now I'm going to add another cylinder. I'm going to put some cuts into this object. I'm going to scale this down after I add that cylinder, and then I'm going to place this where I want it. So I'm going to use the G key, place it where I want it. Okay, 32 segments. This small section will look good with 32, so I'm going to scale it inward, and then bring it back up on the G key. The Z. Okay, so I'm going to hit the smooth tool, hit the normals as I hit the right mouse shading smooth. So now I'm going to mirror this on the opposite side. Select the object first, make sure I hit all transforms again, hit apply, and go to all transforms, so that way it'll center itself again. Now that you've done that, now you're going to go to add modifier, and we're going to select mirror on this one. This time on the Y and the X. So now I'm going to select the round sections, and then select the main object, and now I'm going to boolean those into that as well. So go to edit mode, select the difference with the Bool tool. Okay, and that's cut the sections really nice. Alright, so go back to edit mode and see what has actually occurred. So the lines are a little bit to the sides, where you really wanted them more centered. This will cause a problem when you try to rebevel this tool, this sections. So I'm going to adjust this now. So go into point mode. So next step is to actually go in and use the knife tool and make these more into the center. So basically what I'm going to do there is go from there out. So with the knife tool, select the 1 point, go out, use the control key so it's at an angle, and then use the Z key to cut all the way through. So once that's done, then you hit enter. Okay, so now the next step is to get rid of that line. So I'm going to select it, delete it, go to edge mode, select it, delete. Okay, or dissolve edge. So next step is I'm going to take this and go to all the other sides and make the same exact cut by using the Fast Carve tool, which is that plugin I was telling you about. So now you go in, you know you're basically on the x-axis, and you want to go in and basically change the opposite side now. So we're going to go into this mode, back to that mode so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so go to the X, and we're going to select the negative. Okay, so basically what it did is the exact opposite on the other side, so it's the same thing. Now we're going to do the same thing on the Y-axis, again on the negative. There we go. So now that's a nice clean situation on this object. Alright, so now I'm going to go in and actually clean up some of the leftover edges that got accidentally areas, and I'm basically going to delete these. Okay, so hit the delete key, dissolve edges, and now it's a real clean object. So now I'm actually going to select the edge here on all 4 cylinders, and I'm going to create a separate object out of this. So basically going to go to edge mode, and I'm going to double select everything. So sometimes you have to go and select more stuff, especially when there's a break between the lines. Okay, so select that, hit the F key, create a poly, same thing over here, do the same thing. Go to point mode, hit the F key again, okay, and let's do the other 2 as well. So double click, F key, same thing here, F key. Okay, so now I'm going to select all 4 of these polys. I'm going to go in and actually hit the mesh, and I'm going to separate this object out. Mesh, separate, selection. Okay, so now I've actually created another object. So I'm going to go to edit mode, and there's those objects. Okay, so now I'll go back to edit mode and select all these 4 polys again. And now I'm going to actually bring it in just a little bit, so it has a little bit of an edge. So that way when I'm actually taking this and pushing it down, it actually is not actually within the other poly. So now I'm going to use the extrude tool, push it through. Okay, so now I'm going to select all 4 of these polys and hit the Control plus key until I get to the top. Invert. And now I'm actually going to go in and move it a little bit upward so it's off the bottom of this thing. So G key, Z, bring it up a little bit. Okay, so it's above now. And now the next thing is to go out and extrude each of these cylinders so they actually has an edge to it. I'm going to hit the edge key, double click with the shift key, and then I'm going to actually do E and then right click, and now I'm going to actually go in and use the scale tool with the S, scale this up. I'm going to go in and define this as like 1.30, so it's real close to that. It's easy to copy and paste this that way. So Control C, and I'm going to go in and actually Control V, again in here, Control V, so that way it's all the same. Alright, so now I'm going to do the same thing for all 4 of these areas. Get myself repositioned here. Okay, go into line mode again, double click on the edge. Okay, again, I'm going to use the E key, right click, and then I'm actually going to hit the S key, and then I'm going to actually put this in the same thing, Control V in each of these areas, so select it, or you can do 1.3, whichever. Same thing, 1.3, or you can Control V, same thing. Okay, so now that's done. Another thing I could have done here is actually gone in and just did one of these, and then I could have mirrored this across, because they're pretty much, it's all quads throughout. I could do on the Y and also on the Z axis. I could have mirrored them basically into the same position, but I'm just going to go through each of these as I did. So click on it, double click, hit the E key again, right click to accept, and then go and scale and put it at 1.3 again. 0.3 here as well. Okay, last one. I'm going to go to the last one here and double click the edge again, hit the E key, right click, hit the S key, and then we're going to put it at 1.3, 1.3, 1.3. Okay, so all 4 have been done now. Now I'm going to go in and basically select the polys all the way through. So I'm going to double click the line, the polygon, and do that with all 4 of these. Basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to extrude this out. Same thing there. Let's use the tool to move. Double click. Okay. I'm going to use the extrude tool. Let's bring it up a little bit, so it has an edge to it. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to go in and actually add a bevel to these sections here. So double click the line, double click the inner, and go through the whole thing and do the same thing. Double click, move it around, get yourself positioned. Okay, double click, again, select the line, double click on the edge, double click the edge. Alright, so now I'm going to hit the bevel key, and I'm going to bring it out just a little bit. And I'm going to add a little bit of geometry with segments on there. So we'll add about 3, and that will give it a nice edge for that since it's so far away. Alright, so that's it for that part of it. Let's go back to object mode to see what we got. Okay, that looks really good. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and hide these sections here. So once I select them, I'm going to hit the little eye thing there to hide them, or I could hit H, either way. And I'm going to select this object again, and got a little shading issues there, which is fine. What I'm going to be doing here is actually adding in a sharp edge throughout, so that will clean this up. So go to edit mode, and I'm going to actually first add in a nice bevel around this whole thing. So double click the line and go around the whole thing, do the same thing, And basically what we're going to do is unselect the stuff in the middle. And now I'm going to use the bevel tool to pull this out. This will give it a nice clean look. So I'm going to pull it out to about there. I'm going to add more than 3, of course, because it's closer up. About 9. Okay. And well, 7's good enough. Alright, so now we're going to do the center section. Same thing, double click the line so it goes all the way through. And now we're going to pull this out as well. And you can do this as much, if you want to have a lot more roundness, you can do a lot wider pull. I went with that. Okay. So now that I've done that, I need to now go in and actually select the edges and mark it sharp, basically. So double click the edge. Each one of these. There we go. One more there, one more there, one more there. Okay. So right click and mark sharp. There we go. And then now I'm going to double click the centers of these and do the same thing all the way through. So each of these will have the same thing. Double click, double click. Okay, double click with shift key, double click with shift key all the way through. And again, right click, mark sharp. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to actually go back to object mode and unhide those little sections. And I'm going to work on those. So I'm going to select them. And then I'm going to actually hide the other section. So let me just hide that. Okay. So now I'm going to work on these. Clean that little edge there that I made a mistake on. So select it, go to edit mode, and we're going to go to edge mode and double click them with the shift key. It's as simple as that. And hit the delete key, dissolve edges. Again, double click, delete, dissolve edges. And I'm basically going to do it to all of these. Dissolve edges, double click, dissolve edges. Real simple to do. Okay, we'll do this 2 more times. Zoom in, make it easier. Double click, delete, dissolve edge, delete, dissolve edge. Okay, that's it for that. So I'll go back to object mode and see how that looks. Okay, that looks a lot better. Okay, now I'm actually going to create another section here for the lens. So I'm going to get a little closer, use the mesh tool, create a cylinder, and this time I'm going to add more vertices up to 64 and scale it out. I don't want to go past the line because that could cause another issue. You could do that, of course, but you have to connect those lines a little differently. So now I'm going to scale it in. And once I got the right depth that I like, I'm going to actually go back to the side view, number pad 1, and then I'm going to hit the G key and Z upward so it penetrates through. Okay. So now I'm going to select both objects. First I'm going to actually go in and auto smooth and right click to shade smooth. And now I'm going to hit both of them and hit the difference key to delete the other object. Okay. Let's see how that looks. Looks really good. So now I'm going to double click all the way around. And what I'm going to do here is basically create another polygon so I could actually start manipulating that. Okay, so once you select it all, make sure nothing else is selected. And you can hit the F key. Okay. Now separate selection. Go to edit mode. And then select the object. Alright, so now I'm going to actually manipulate this thing. So edit mode. And I'm going to bring it up so it has an edge. And then I'm going to inset faces, so that way I can start creating some edges. Okay, that looks good. Of course, you can make this any way you want to make it, of course. Okay, so now I'm going to bring this down, bevel, actually extrude it inward. So basically I'm going to go hide that so I can see what I'm doing. Go back to edit mode. Select the poly. Now I'm going to extrude it downward. Not sure what I did here. I actually created an extra poly there. So I'm going to... Okay. So now I'm going to actually select the edges here and make sure I go to edge mode. Double click, shift key. Okay. It's actually created another poly there, so now I can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to inset faces. And then we're going to bring it downward so it has a bevel to it. The move key, and again we'll continue to bring this down. And I'm actually going to scale it outward within, so it gives it like a depth to it inside. So now I'm adding a little bit, basically adding in a loop there. And moving it upward. The move key on the Z-axis. And now I'm actually going to add more of an edge to that. Give it some definition. Bring it inward. Just creating some nice lines. That's what I'm doing here. So that time I used the Z key again and move. Now I'm going to double click these edges and bevel them. So bevel the first one. Okay, I'm going to add about 4 on this. Bevel this one. Okay. 4 again. Okay, I'm going to continue until I go back to that. So a little bevel there. I'm going to add about 5 there. 4, yeah. Now the inner. Alright, so I was having some problems actually selecting this edge in the intersection. So basically I'm double clicking the polygon and I'm going to remove this. As you can see, it went all the way through. That was kind of what was causing the problem. That's why I was not able to adjust it. Somehow I made a mistake there. So now I'm going to bridge these together. I'm going to double select the line on the bottom and the top. So go to edge mode, double click, shift, double click, and then go to the edge section and bridge edge loops. There we go. That solved that problem. Now if you double click it, it works fine. So I'm actually going to now bevel this. Okay, 4. Alright, that's looking good. Same with this one. Not as much in the inner. 3. Nice and smooth. Now I need to reconnect this bottom piece. Delete that. double click this, edge mode again. Okay, and then select the bottom piece. So now I got all this selected. Go again back to edges and go to bridge edge loops. There we go. So now I'm going to unhide everything and see how it looks. Back to object mode. And I need to do a shade smooth on this. Make sure the normals are selected. And auto smooth is on. Okay, that looks a lot better. So now I'm actually going to add a UV sphere. And I'm actually going to smooth shade and also make sure I auto smooth this as well. And scale this down with the S key. I'm going to reposition this. And then scale it in downward, so it gives it like more of a swoosh sphere. I'm going to move it basically on the G key with the Z upward, so it just penetrates above the top to give it the kind of like a wide angle lens effect. I'm going to go in here and just kind of adjust a little bit. And double click that area. And I'm actually going to scale this outward. Okay. A little bit of a bevel there. Really don't need to do this if you don't want to. You probably won't see it, but just in case. Okay, that's looking really good. So save it. Actually save constantly. Sometimes I actually save more than one time, so in case I make a mistake, I don't have to completely restart over again. That's probably the best method that I find. Save once, save again, and then start working on the object. So that way, whatever you do, it doesn't affect the one before. Okay, so now I'm going to actually go in and select every other one of these sections here. And basically going to punch it, inset it, and punch it out so I could actually create some type of light effect around this thing. You see, to make it a little easier, I just selected the whole thing. And now I'm actually going to select every other one with the control key to make it easier. I'm sure there's a much easier way to do this. There's a way to loop selections. I just don't remember off the top of my head at this moment. So anyway, I'm going to continue this. If you know an easier way, just go ahead and do it. And continue to go around. Almost there. Okay, one more. Okay. Actually, I brought it up a little bit. Now I'm going to use the inset tool so it gives an edge to it. Now inset inward. And now I'm going to use the extrude tool inward. Okay. So now I'm going to select those polys and separate that object out as well, so that way I can create a separate object out of those squares that are inside. So mesh, go to separate selection, deselect, go to edit object mode, and that will create its own object. Okay. So now I'm actually going to go to the see-through mode and see how this looks. Looks really good detail. And now I'm actually going to create another object to punch through on the sides to give it some variations. So I'm actually going to go in, and I'm actually going to, not a circle, but I'm actually going to add a cube here. So I'm going to actually go in and edit the cube. So again, go to edit mode, and select the edges all the way around. Okay, so now again I'm going to use the bevel tool to bring it inward. Okay, about right there. And I'm going to go in and make that 0.5, so about half the distance. And I'm going to change the segments and bring them up to about 10 again. Okay, click off. That looks good. Bring this out. And I'm going to rotate this unit. So select it. So I'm going to double select the top. Use the bevel tool. Add some segments to this. Okay. That's nice and rounded. So I went to the top view, number 7 on the keypad. So I'm going to bring these sections in. I'm going to select them and bring them in on the Y. So G, Y, bring it down. Same thing with the other section. G, Y, bring it out. Okay. More of a squish effect, but it'll work. Okay. So basically I'm going to use this object to punch into the other object. That's what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to select the object, go to object mode, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So I'll go in there and put -90, enter. All right. Bring it down just a little bit. Line it up, try to center it. Okay. I'm actually going to use the G key, a little bit more scale there, but I'm going to go ahead and zoom a little bit more. This time I'm actually going to add, make it a little bit longer. So I'm going to select the points and use the G key on the X, move it outward, so to the other edge. And same thing with the other side. So selection tool. Move it again out. So it's kind of centered off of that. About there. Okay. Now I'm going to take this and select the whole thing. G key, Z, and move it in on the Y. Okay. That looks good about right there. Punches through. Then went to the top view, kind of line it up. Okay. Okay, go back to object mode. And now I'm going to change the location. I'm going to Alt-A and basically all transforms. Select that so it zeroes everything out. Okay, so now actually it'll be easy to mirror this over. So now I'm going to select the other object as well, and I'm going to actually first go to modifiers and mirror this. But first I got smooth shade, of course, and auto smooth. So it's nice and smooth before I do the modifier. So select modifier, mirror, and I'm going to put it on the Y. Take the X off. Okay. So there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply. Now actually I use the Bool tool, difference, and there we go. Alright, so now basically this is the actual object textured. I'm not going to go over this on this video, but I basically used EV materials with KitOps to do all the texturing on this object. Really easy program to use, but again, I'm not going to go over this on this video. So basically what I've done here is I copied the object and made a duplication of it. And I'm going to go in and actually go to edit mode and adjust this object. So I'm going to go to edit mode. And I'm going to change this, of course, back to mesh and go back to modeling mode, make it a little bit easier. Okay, side view. Okay, so basically in object mode, I'm actually going to select edit mode. Delete this. I'll hide the other object. Okay. So now you're just left with the sides. Go to polygon mode. And we're going to select the base, basically, for all 4 sections. And then I'm going to inverse this and delete everything else. So select, invert. Hit the delete key again. Delete faces. There we go. So again, delete that. We had some problems there. I'll move this up. Okay, so now I basically extrude this upward with the E key. I'm going to position a little bit below the 0 axis. And now I'm actually going to go in and extrude it one more time with the E key. And then I'm going to actually scale that out. But I right-clicked after I did the E key, of course. I'm just trying to get a nice edge here. So now I'm going to scale a little bit on the y-axis, so it's a little bit more symmetrical. All right. So next step is to go around and actually select the edge and also bevel this. So it will be a nice transition between the 2 objects. When it cuts into it, it'll be a real nice smooth rotation. So let's add some more segments to this, about 5. Okay, so this is basically your cutting tool that we're going to be using. So now I created another object just to, to actually cut this other object into. So I'm actually selecting the main object here, the big block, and I put in Boolean. And now I'm going to select the cutting tool that I defined earlier. So once you select it, it actually cuts right into it like it should. That's what you want. This is basically the vanilla way. KitOps is a much easier way to add a lot more easiness to maneuver stuff around. As you can see, it cuts right through everything as you maneuver it. This is the one way you can do it, of course, and there's also the add-on way, which is a much quicker and easier solution, of course, but you can do it either way. It's your preference, of course. Hope you liked the video. Please subscribe so I know that you guys appreciate the videos, and I'll continue to make stuff. Thank you.